Hi, welcome to Main Street Macro. I'm Neela Richardson. This week is a busy week for the economy. Not only are key members of the Federal Reserve meeting this week to decide the future state of interest rates, we're also going to get a report card on the economy when new numbers on first quarter growth are released on Thursday. A lot happening. There are a lot of questions. When economists want to know about the future, one thing we tend to do is look in the past. And there are three lessons that you can learn from history about economic growth. The first lesson is that key parts of the economy tend to move in tandem, but not in lockstep. So during times of economic expansion or contraction, key items in the economy like growth, inflation, employment tend to either move up together or down together. This is known more commonly as the business cycle. But let me tell you, cycle sounds really precise, but there's nothing precise about it really. I mean, no one really knows how long an economic expansion or contraction will last. History shows us that recessions tend to be shorter than expansions. The last expansion we had right before the pandemic hit was 10 years long. It was over 10 years. You know, it was the longest economic expansion in US history. Now, this downturn that we saw in the second quarter of last year, it was the deepest since the Great Depression. But as deep as it is, this might be one of the shortest recessions in economic history. Now, the second lesson from history is that in terms of growth, the economy tends to create a bigger pie with fewer slices. And you can actually see this in the data. Over the last decade, US economic wealth has doubled. It's gone from about $63 trillion in 2010, the last quarter of 2010, to $122 trillion the last quarter of this year. So big explosive growth over the last 10 years that's doubled. However, for middle income Americans, their share of that growth has shrunk. It was 30% in 2010. It's now 28% about the end of the year last year. So bigger pie, fewer, smaller shares of that pie, sometimes fewer slices of that pie. And so the trick is how to make that growth more inclusive. Now, the third lesson we can learn from history is that growth is driven by innovation. If you want to look at the driver of economic growth, it's always going to be technological advancement, progress. That's what drives the economy ahead. That's what increases the overall standard of living. And that's what leads to an increased standard of economic well-being over time. So if you add all these lessons, what does that say about the post-pandemic economy? Well, history can only tell us what happened. It can't tell us what will happen. And as people search for what this new normal means, one thing we can know for sure, when it comes to economic growth, normal for the economy means constant change. It means adaptation, and it means progress. And the challenge of growth is to make it inclusive for everybody. Thank you for watching the Main Street Macro this week. For more of our insights on the week ahead, please go to adpri.org.